All right, welcome everybody to the R.O.A.R podcast show. Today is John Rutan's on the mic here, John Smith, and Penny here, Swan. Penny Swan's going to give us the daily news for today, and we're just going to jump right into it. So go ahead, Penny, and give us some daily news today.
Hi. Well, what's coming up is Monday night. I think it's December 6th. We have a Hillsdale City Council meeting, and one of the things I'm finding pretty interesting is the sale of Jason Walter's hangar. He made some modifications to the hangar, put an office in there, and took away floor space for the airplanes. And the FAA kind of frowns on that, and some concerned citizens kind of followed up with some government officials, and Jason got into some trouble. He resigned from the airport advisory committee meeting as a chairperson because he felt attacked and belittled, couldn't take the pressure anymore. So now he's trying to sell his hangars back to the city of Hillsdale at a premium of actually like $12,000 more than he paid for them.
$90,000 or something in that realm?
$90,000, yes, and he paid
$72,000, yeah.
Those modifications need to be taken down and put back, and he hasn't done that yet. So
the modifications actually take away from the value of the hangar. So if the hangar was worth $72,000 with the modifications, I believe it's worth less.
Exactly. There's less floor space for the aircraft.
That's right.
So that definitely, in my mind, takes away on the price. So I don't know where that $90,000 came in. I will be speaking up to that again Monday night at the City Council.
And that's December 4th, too, Monday night.
Thank you for that clarification.
Well, do they have some sort of inspector or some evaluator or someone that goes in there that evaluates the pricing of something like that? Like you have like a realtor go in there?
Should be an appraiser.
Appraiser, yeah, that's what I mean.
They supposedly did have an appraiser that came out of Osseo, but
okay, so
he
but
was
there's not three of them, right? It was just the one, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
There wasn't even two. It was just the one.
And
One.
it's someone from this county.
I mean, do we know who that is?
Yeah.
It's in the packet, I think, for Monday night, but I don't have it.
Yeah,
with
I
me.
mean, we don't know if they're tied in with anybody in the community themselves, right?
Exactly.
And with the ethical issues we've had in Hillsdale in the past.
Right, which we'll
it's
be
always
on.
good
We'll
to check.
Yeah, which we'll be getting on a little bit later. Yeah.
And whether he has any qualifications to judge pricing of an airport hangar. I mean, it's just the hangar. You're not owning the property either.
Well, I mean, is
property
the appraisal
Hillsdale.
for a hangar sort of the same it is with normal realty properties? I mean, like a residential or commercial?
I would say probably the process is pretty close to the same. You have to look at comps, of course, of what other things in that area or other towns of that size, what their hangars are worth, how much business the airport's doing, how much revenue potential that there is there. So I'm sure, it's done probably pretty close to the same process as appraising any type of property is done. But the thing is, there's a big difference between appraisers and how they're appraising. I can have 5 appraisers come appraise my house, and I'm going to get 5 completely different answers.
Sure, and you're a building inspector, John, so you know how building inspections are.
Sure.
It's sort of the same concept, right?
Absolutely. Some of them are hit and miss.
Okay, and then I mean, is that really what the big fight here is about? I mean, it could potentially be worth $90,000, right, with inflation going up and when he bought it, or.
Well, here's what I think the big fight's all over. I think the big fight's over things not being done in the open. It's all about transparency. You know as well as I do sometimes, and I've said this before. When we started the Hillsdale Justice Project, I said the same thing. I said, if you want people to come up with conspiracy theories about you, all you have to do is start a group, don't tell anybody what you're doing, and tell them it's all secret, and everybody will fill in the blanks for themselves, and it'll be some of the most heinous things you've ever heard, and you can just sit and laugh because that's what people do. That's human nature.
Sure. And, and Jason's probably a wonderful dude, right?
There's nobody that has horns and a tail.
Right.
Nobody's 100% evil or anybody's 100%
he's probably
good.
a good guy, but keeping everything in secrecy or trying to hide or.
Anytime you do anything with public money, it better be so far above reproach that no one can even suggest that you've done something inappropriate.
Unethical.
That's right. So the problem is when they have not been transparent, and it's just like anything else. If you got a kid and your kid lies to you, do you trust them each and every time after that, or do they have to build that trust back?
Right.
Well, it's the same thing. When city council isn't transparent on one thing, it doesn't matter that it was a mistake on that one thing that they weren't transparent on.
Right.
Now no one can take anything at face value.
Sure.
And that makes people uneasy, especially when you've got other people spending your money.
Right.
So what is in the hangar that is causing some drama?
Well, he put an office in and a man cave and a second story, and the problem is the FAA looks down on you putting those things in and taking away floor space for planes.
Okay, so
That's what the FAA and the MDOT.
And this was illegal according to FAA for him to do this?
Well, let's kind of back up here. Let's do just a little bit of pre-knowledge here on some things. Michigan State, FAA has the federal money. They have the money that they put out for aeronautics for different airports and stuff. Michigan doesn't happen to let the FAA come and do that individually. So Michigan is one of those states that they set up all that aeronautical money has to come in through the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT.
Okay.
They're the ones then that take that FAA federal aeronautics money and hand it out to the airports or the different aeronautical businesses that are that qualify for that money, that qualify for those grants. So MDOT actually kind of does that. MDOT is the one then that comes up with the grant verbiage and policies and procedures and rules on what the money has to be used for, how much of it has to be used for that, how they have to account for it, how they, what it can be used for, what it can't be used for. I've dealt with grants when I worked at the college, and it almost takes a full-time staff to manage grants when they come in because there's so many different nuances to them. So this is what we've got there. One of the nuances to the MDOT thing was that because it's FAA money that's being taken from aeronautical businesses and from pilots and from planes and that like, that it has to be used for pilots and planes. It has to be used for aeronautical businesses. So when they granted that money, they said none of those hangars could be converted to anything but aeronautical.
Yeah, you can't rent it for storage.
No, you can't rent it for storage. You can't turn one into a bar.
You can't store a limo in there.
No, you can't do any of that stuff. So thereby, if it's a hangar and it's built for a hangar, then it has to remain a hangar that a plane can go into.
Okay.
So a hangar is nothing more than just a great big huge building with open space.
And Jason, being the airport manager, I would assume knows this.
Should have known this.
And actually, go ahead.
He should have known this. But the problem is, Jason only had his pilot's license for about 6 months when they made him an airport manager. Now, that would be like you being a first-year resident, and then they go, well, you're going to go ahead and take over the heart surgery wing.
Right.
You may be college trained, but you don't have the experience to do that.
Well, I don't really know if he knew or not, but I mean, I would assume as being an airport manager, you would know something.
Should have.
Yeah, should have known something like that. It seems
much is given, much is required and expected.
Yeah.
But the city manager and the city government did know, and they were warned about this, and they did nothing.
Right.
Even when
they had a chance
so they're accountable as well.
Right. Well, they had over a year's notice to do something before people.
And it was the city manager, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're accessories after the and they're accessories
the city
during
manager
the fact.
And who else?
I don't.
Well, maybe some of the board members, possibly.
The council definitely.
Yeah,
some of the council definitely knew.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then I was just reading recently something about plumbing issues and electrical issues in the hangar as well.
Well, yeah, see what happened was Jason was in there 2 years ago. And he's been running non-aviation businesses out of there for about 2 years. When MDOT finally heard about it and found out about it in April of 2017, I believe it was.
Yep.
They came out and inspected, and they said, "Okay, look, you weren't supposed to do it, but no more. And anybody that's going to be in here and have a non-aviation business has to have a lease, and that lease can't be for any more than 36 months, I believe, 3 years. And they have to have 70, and that lease has to be written where they only have to have 72 hours notice to clear out if an aviation business wants that space." So the problem is when MDOT came down and said that, MDOT didn't know that, number one, there had never been a building permit pulled, that number two, because it's a commercial space, it has to have an engineered print filed with the building inspector prior to the commencement of work. That's part of Michigan State Code. And the other thing is they didn't know how much it was going to take to bring it back into code. But what they did say in April was no more
Modifications.
Modifications. Thank you, Penny. Modifications. no more modifications. So those modifications, let's trigger on that word. Let's pay attention to that word, modification, okay? So when it was found out that he had done this without a building permit, he was turned into the building inspection department.
Right.
Okay, the building inspection department is a county department, but their bosses, they actually follow their marching orders from LARA, from the state of Michigan, which is the Michigan Building Code and Licensing Board in Lansing. So the county building inspector,
Isn't that's license and regulatory affairs? Or
yeah,
license?
license and regulatory affairs. That's what LARA stands
Yeah,
for. It used to
okay.
be DLEG. It used to be the
Yeah.
Department of Energy, something.
Yeah,
So,
that's where you get your medical marijuana card from too.
yeah. Just any time the state steals your rights and sells them back, it goes through LARA.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. So anyway, the building inspector was contacted. The building inspector said that yes, they hadn't pulled a permit, so he made Jason pull the permit with a fine, and then the building inspector passed the construction that was done until it was brought up to the building inspector that the code says, because that's commercial, that he's running 3 businesses there, that's not residential, because it's commercial, a commercial space, it has to have either an architectural stamp or an architectural engineer stamp planned prior to the commencement of work. So the building inspector, being nice, said, okay, we'll let you go ahead and go get a stamp now. So they hired an engineer, very good engineer. I've used him in the past out of Lenawee County. Very good structural
So
engineer.
we could assume that he's going to pass everybody from here on out too with the sliding. Like he's going to give everybody else a pass too after this, right?
But the thing is, it's dangerous for engineers to do what this engineer did. But what he did was he qualified himself. So that engineer went in and did an inspection and come up with 2 pages of code violations that needed to be finished. So it was about $10,000 to $12,000 more work. So we're not talking the same modification. We're talking additional modification, which was against what the MDOT said in April.
It seems like everybody here, like in every position, is like doing the wrong thing here.
And this is the problem. When we start doing this, well, because we're buddies and we're on the same group, and so we're friends, I'll overlook anything you do because, hey, we're buddies. That's got to stop. This is part of the ethics. I can be friends with you. You can be my brother. But if you do something that's wrong, I'm going to call you out on it. We're still going to sit down and have supper together. But I'm going to chastise you when you're wrong. That's how it is.
Yep.
That's how it should be.
So everybody that has came along is kind of, I'll give them a pass.
Yes, because we're buddies.
Right.
This is part of where everybody coins the
Or
GOB,
the
the
position.
good old boy.
Right.
Or,
Exactly.
Or the position, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
Because he's with
I mean,
the-
look at the amount of
city.
people in the Exchange Club that came out and defended somebody putting $60,000 worth of modifications on a commercial building without a building permit and building it unsafe and not caring, and defending the person for doing it. Think about that. That's an Exchange Club. People did that. Because why? Because it was one of their own in the Exchange Club that did it. See, this is part of our problem in Hillsdale. This is what creates the good old boys.
This is probably
Right.
a problem.
It's a problem everywhere.
Across
Yep.
the
But
country.
this is why when you practice morals and ethics, these problems don't happen. When you don't do nepotism, when you don't do cronyism,
Right.
these problems take care of themselves.
Well, Penny, we went down that long road there.
Sorry, I talked too much.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But I figured that background information is what
Why
people
don't you
really
jump in here, Penny?
I tried.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Getting back to the inspection, they got the final inspection, but there are still things that need to be done to the hangar. The electrical permits inspection prior to any new occupancy, plumbing, any new installations, the HVAC, any new installation, building permits and inspections prior to any new occupancy to be completed. Area beneath the stairs, second level, drywall required. Any completion of upper level areas, currently framed only. So there are a lot of things that still need to be done. You can't just sell it and put a plane in it and it's going to be up to code and good to go. The main reason I'm really annoyed and upset that this is on the agenda this Monday is because the last meeting we discussed this. They wanted to complete the sale last meeting, and enough of us raised questions that they sent it to the finance committee. I don't know why they sent it to that committee, but they did. They haven't met yet, so it shouldn't even be on the agenda this Monday.
So what is the finance committee going to vote on? Whether they can afford to buy it or...
No, they are supposed to look at options. Like one question was, why don't you? Most of the city council doesn't have a problem buying it back. I have a problem giving Jason
additional funds.
This is
because it's not. It's probably not appraised properly or accordingly.
Right, but why should he was our airport manager. He resigned his position. He was supposed to give 90 days when you resigned by his contract.
Yeah.
David Mackey let him out because of the pressure he was under. So David Mackey just let him out of his contract.
The social media pressure.
Right, so, okay, anybody that's got a contract with the city, now they can get out of it? It's like we aren't going to hold anybody to their contract, any contract?
That was, again, another slide.
Right.
Another, we're going to just let
this roll.
Good old boy
slide.
Right.
It's like the citizens don't get a slide.
Well, here's where one of my problems comes in. I happen to have the building inspection document right here in front of me, the latest one on that building. And just on the electrical, it says under final electrical inspection, it says final not approved. Unable to trace all upper and hangar wiring and junction boxes, contractor to expose and verify at reinspection of code compliance or disconnect from main panel. So that means all those walls have to be torn down just to see the wiring. Now,
what's
at the
date
bottom,
on that one?
This one is, the date is to date inspected 10/24/2017.
Go ahead and say the date again.
10/24 of 2017. Now, what really bothers me, though, is down at the bottom where it says final electrical inspection. If you look at the last paragraph, it says, note, new tenant or owner will be required to contract with a licensed electrical contractor to reconnect any circuit lighting required for the new occupancy. So that means if the city buys it, the city pays him more than what he paid for it. Then they have to go ahead and spend about $10,000 to $12,000 more just to bring everything up, because they have to get an occupancy before that building can be occupied by anybody for any reason.
So they got to like gut that all out, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so they either have to go in and completely gut it out, and that's going to be $8,000.
Redo the electrical, redo the plumbing, whatever.
Even if they gut it out and throw it away, that's $8,000. So that's going to cost $8,000 to do that. If they go in and upgrade it pursuant to the building inspection report, then they pretty much have to gut it and then redo it. So you're looking at $10,000 to $12,000.
So let me get this straight. So the airport manager he quit without giving his due notice, right? And he quit under pressure. He did stuff illegally in the hangar. He bought the hangar for $72,000 or $78,000, whatever it was. $72,000, and he wants to turn around and profit from it and not fix the stuff that he did wrong in the hangar, and wants to put it on the taxpaying dollars.
See, I don't have a problem with him profiting in the private market.
Right.
But he's not trying to profit in the private market. He's trying to profit in the public market off the backs of the taxpayers.
Right.
That's what's wrong.
Exactly. Me too.
If it was a fair, open, public market, and somebody says, you know what, Jason, I'll give you $200,000 for it, I would think he would be an idiot if he didn't sell it. I would do anything I could to entice him to do that. But we're not talking the private market. We're talking the public market.
And here's another wrinkle.
And obviously the council isn't doing, they're backing them, it appears.
Right.
Sure.
Exactly. Here's another wrinkle is we have a private citizen businessman that has an aviation business that wants to buy the hangar. And he can't get the time of day from anybody in the city.
Well, then that's also a violation of the MDOT grant money, because in the MDOT grant money, it says anybody that's in there has to have 72-hour, if anybody wants it for aeronautical, then they have to give the current occupant 72 hours to clear out. That means that if they give him 72 hours to clear out, he has to rip all that out anyway and clear out. Now, the other thing I remember is, I believe by the lease in 11 months, if we do nothing, the city ends up with it anyway.
Exactly.
So my thing is, if I'm looking at the city council doing what's best for me,
or the constituency,
I would say that, you know what, table this foolishness, and in 11 months, it's ours anyway.
Exactly.
And call it good.
Yeah,
and
unless he wants to fix it.
That's right.
And then
that's right. Then
cut his losses
Jason wants to fix it, or he wants to sell it on the private market.
Right.
then that's completely up to him within 11 months. But if he can't do it in 11 months, then it becomes the people's.
And the citizens of Hillsdale shouldn't have to pay this $90,000 plus the expense of making this back to a functional large hangar.
And if it wasn't for the social media group that is keeping a watchful eye on these people, this sale would just go through. Nobody would even know about it.
Quietly, if there weren't myself and a few others going to council meetings, nobody would know about
I'm not
these
sure,
things.
but I think that's the Satanic Six.
That's right. The Hillsdale Six.
Okay. Well, obviously this is going to be on Facebook, and if we're misrepresented anything or if we're off or anything, we encourage the audience to help us out, give us comments, let us know. But what else is that? Is that all we got? We got some other stuff for news.
We do. Last Wednesday night was the hearing at Fayette Township on the 425 Meijer issue. I recorded that live on Facebook. It's had almost 1,000 watches so far. Come on, guys! I want to hit that 1,000 mark. I was quite aghast. I've not been to any other township meetings. I need to go to see if they're all run like this, but
They are.
it wasn't. It was very disorganized, not very like Robert's Rule of Order type thing. Yep. They opened it up. They asked for public comment on the 425. I went up to talk. I had a whole sheet of bullet points I wanted to make, and as soon as I brought up the social media poll on Facebook, she's like, no, we can't talk about a poll. You're only supposed to talk strictly on the 425. And it's like, I'm talking about the 425. I mean, it's public comment. I just didn't quite get it. But
isn't public comment covered under the First Amendment too, I think?
I know. It's like, I'm not, speaking gibberish here. I'm talking about 425.
Not being disruptive.
So, I went and sat down, and other people got up and talked, and their feelings are clearly hurt because they weren't in from day one on the 425. My take is Meijer was talking to Hillsdale because they wanted to deal with Hillsdale and wanted the store to be in Hillsdale so Hillsdale could supply the services. So Hillsdale was putting together the 425, footing the bill, working with Meijer. Meijer supposedly told them to keep it quiet. They didn't talk with Fayette. As soon as the final draft was done, they did talk to Fayette. They sent it to Fayette on October 10th. They sent it to Fayette Township. And Hillsdale on November 6th, we had a city council meeting. It was brought up. Bill Zeiser asked for a second to put the motion in to vote on it. He got silence from everybody. So they couldn't move forward with the 425. It was the day before election. I wonder if that had anything to do with anything.
It had everything to do with it.
Yep. So then we had to wait another 2 weeks, and then it finally went through. Well, after the November 6th, social media erupted. Few minutes after the city council, everybody was inundated with people saying, yes, we have to have Meijer. Why the heck didn't you vote on it? Blah, 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 blah. And there were petitions out there, polls out there, lots and lots and lots and lots of talk out there. That actually got the people at Fayette upset too, and she said she felt left out. Why didn't you talk to us about a petition? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, really? Come on, you're acting like to me, she was acting like a 3-year-old throwing a fit.
You know what bruises easier than a peach? An ego.
Yeah. But it's like, this was Hillsdale's uprising. It wasn't Jonesville's uprising. Anyway, she kind of pouted about that, and the city people of Hillsdale didn't really get the final draft until just before the November 6th. That's when Bruce Sharp got up in the meeting and said, well, we didn't do anything because we had just gotten it. And it's like, come on, Bruce, you knew you were voting on this. It wasn't like blindsided you. You knew it was coming.
I like your impression.
So I just don't get where everybody said they were blindsided. Fayette knew this was in the works a year ago. They didn't see eyes on until the final draft in October 10th. I know there are other people that disagree with me, but I honestly want to know, how long does it take a township to look over a 425.
Well, the other thing is too, when they know that there's a bit of a deadline, we're not dealing with a mom and pop shop. We're dealing with a Fortune 500 company. We're dealing with a large national chain. When they say they've got a deadline for December 1st, they've got a deadline for December 1st.
Right.
It's not like a mom and pop shop where they go, well, yeah, I got a deadline for December 1st or maybe the 15th. Yeah, we can kind of bobble it around a little. So I think it's just irresponsible on the elected officials' parts.
All of them. Right.
Both
Right.
Fayette and Hillsdale.
Right.
And all of them should be hanging their head in shame for being so ill-prepared, support and to uphold what they were supposed to do, what their constituency put them there to do.
This is sort of like why they're getting the pressure on social media, and this is why we're doing this podcast, isn't it? Because, I mean, we're Hillsdale's been seeing its fair share of irresponsibility.
Right.
Yeah. For way too long.
Right.
And people are starting to wake up. We've got such a huge problem with apathy in Hillsdale, in Hillsdale County. It's horrible. But I think part of it is because there's not enough information. I mean, let's face facts. If you want to get into the politics here, it's almost an every night commitment.
Oh, it is. I spend hours and hours and hours every single day.
I mean, we were doing this yesterday.
Studying and researching.
Yeah, we were doing this yesterday.
Yep.
Exactly. And so if you want to have any family life at all or do anything.
Yeah, if you want a wife.
Oh, yeah, well,
or, husband,
or if you want to
spouse.
be in the exchange club or anything like that, be in one of those service clubs, you've got no time at all. So a lot of people get apathetic very easy, but part of it is because there's no transparency. And I also think a podcast or like what we talked about with Scott last night, a local TV station that's actually carrying the news of here makes it much easier, because now I can watch like a nightly news show on the computer and I can get my political feed and my updates of what's going on. I can have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in Hillsdale. I don't
at least somewhat.
That's right. And so now I can go to the polls and make a very well-informed decision when I go, and I can see the results over a period of time in this new media that's coming out. And so I think this actually, with our podcasts and that, is going to actually help deal with some of that voter apathy.
Well, Penny asked, how long does it take to go over a packet like that, 425 packet? I mean, you would assume that it would only take a few weeks. I mean, like...
Well, but part of the thing is, this is why we send people to specialized school called law school, and we pay them handsomely to do that, because they have a knack and a proclivity to go over that paperwork and look at those words and look at the wordsmithing and know what it means.
And Fayette Township has a lawyer.
All townships have lawyers. So they all could have had lawyers
I can go
over
hire an
it.
attorney on Fiverr.com for $5.
Right.
That's right. And they should be able to take a contract or a 425 and summarize it to me to the point that I should be able to make a well-informed decision and a vote.
Yeah,
It'd
take under a month. Let's
in
be
a
fair.
little over a month, that should be possible.
Yeah, it shouldn't take no more than a month.
It should take me, if it takes my lawyer more than a day to read a 425 of that size and tell me what the gist of it is, then the man shouldn't have, or the man or the woman should not
Penny,
have a license.
What do you think is the problem?
I think Fayette Township doesn't want it. A few of them did, but there was a husband and wife that was on the board together. And
Red flag.
Red flag? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and
you said they were voting for another person that wasn't there.
Right. One of the supervisor is a snowbird, I guess, and he was in Florida. He was listening to the whole
Man, that's weird
meeting
too, isn't it?
via a phone, and then at the end they had to come to a vote on whether they let him vote. And the husband and the wife said no, and the other two said yes. So there was a tie, so he didn't get to vote. I'm guessing he would have voted yes.
Voting from abroad?
Well, my problem is this. If you're going to run for a position, but you're only going to be here half the year, step down.
Or he should have flown up here for this big thing.
Absolutely.
Building a Meijer in your community sounds pretty big.
The citizens of Fayette Township and Hillsdale County and surrounding areas lost big time because he wasn't here.
Well, here's the other thing. We live in the 21st century. It's now a time of technology, right? We've had a judge that's sentencing people from jail while they're in the jail.
Yeah, Skyping it.
Right.
So why can't we do the same thing on a township board? But if he's going to be a snowbird and he's going to do that, that should have been in place before he left for Florida.
Right,
I'm
exactly.
sorry.
Yep.
That's irresponsibility.
particularly on this 425, right?
Yeah,
Again,
it's a huge
Yeah.
thing. Huge.
I mean, this isn't like passing a blight ordinance in a community.
But it doesn't matter whether it's a 425. It doesn't matter whether it's something big or something small. See, we get all caught up in this. We go, well, they only stole $100.
Right, I know.
It doesn't matter if you steal a penny or a million. It's still theft.
Or a
It's
sin's
wrong.
a sin, right?
That's right.
That's true.
It's still wrong.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
So he should have had this. Oh, they should have already had this all arranged
That's
ahead
right.
of time.
They
Yep.
should have either had a Skype arranged where he could vote he could vote through media, or they should have said, okay, everybody has to be present.
Is there a law that he has to be there physically?
Well,
There might be some sort of constitutional law from Michigan Constitution.
Bylaws usually set all that stuff up. And so if it's in the bylaw, if it's not, if there's a question that's never been dealt with, then it needs to be put into the bylaw. And if I'm going to run for a full-time position, but I'm going to leave for half the year, then it seems to me that the responsible thing to do would be to get something in the bylaws before I leave so that I know I can vote for the constituency that put me in there.
Who was the guy that was the snowbird? Do you know? Do you have it?
Township supervisor, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember
Township
his
supervisor of Fayette Township?
Yeah.
Okay, well, everybody can
we can
look that up
Google
real quick. But
name. All they have to do is watch my video on Penny Swan, political activist for Hillsdale, and they can see the whole thing.
That's
Names and all.
Strange. What goes on with these local politics. So you don't think the local mob pop places have a say in this, since we do have a lot of nepotism and collusion and people being close to each other in the community, you don't think maybe the mom and pop type places are trying to not have Meijer come here?
Oh, definitely they are. Brett Boyd got up at the first public hearing in Hillsdale, and
like Market House. Let's just give an example.
That's
right?
Brett Boyd.
Oh, okay.
At the Market House. He got up and passionately, tearfully made pleas on December 6th for our council to vote it down. I mean, he rallied all of the local business people to come in.
There's nothing wrong with him rallying that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
I have no problem with that. I'm just curious if maybe his brother's on a board or something like that.
Well, I don't know if he's related to this couple that were.
I know the supervisor. I didn't know. It's John Kluzniak.
Yeah, that's it.
John Kluzniak, he was the former police chief of Hillsdale City,
and
he was also the chief of security for Hillsdale College. He's retired from both of them.
Okay, well, that's a private position.
Yeah. But I like John. John's good people. He's been a cop for a long time. John's one of the guys. He doesn't pull punches with you. So it surprises me that something that big that John wouldn't be that prepared for, that they wouldn't. But I can also see why they would shut him down and not let him vote.
And maybe they said
we should ask him.
Yeah, that would be.
John's pretty outspoken, so I know there's a lot of people.
I wonder if he's on Facebook.
A lot of people don't like John for the same reason they don't like me, because he's very upfront and no bones about it. He's
I barely like you, John.
I know. I know. My wife only likes me with the drugs, I think. But I'm not sure. No, I'm just kidding. But he's a very direct person, and I found that I like very direct people.
Yeah,
but I found that
me too.
us really direct people aren't fondly liked by.
Yeah, it's a hit or we're hit or miss characters, right?
I'm direct at council, and I'm not real liked either. So
Right. Some people see that as negative. I don't. I see it as
So
positive.
essentially with the 425, they're stalling, and typically you don't want to stall when you're dealing with the Fortune 500 company.
No.
Right? Is that the short of it?
December 1st was Meijer's deadline that it had to be signed by.
Okay. Well,
So-
it's already too late now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Today it's too late.
The other thing I found absolutely amazing in a bad way was the person that was running the meeting. When they did do the vote, there was no motion, no official motion.
Ooh.
And they're like, okay.
So they already violate OMA, is what you're saying.
They violated Robert's Rules of Order.
Right.
Right.
And if Robert's Rules of Order has been voted on as their official rules,
which it
then
is.
they violated the rules. The other thing is, then once they did that and they told John Kluzniak he couldn't vote, it's all a wash anyway.
But the deadline was today, so
Right, but all John needed to do was call a special meeting on the phone and say, no, motion second, vote. Motion second, vote.
Wow.
There was no motion, and then when she went around, she said, well, I'm going to take a poll, and are you, to the first guy, I meant to have these names written down. Are you for this or against it? And he said for. And she's like, so you want to move forward? Yes. And then the wife, Mrs. Dubois, are you for this or do you think we need more time? Not, are you for this, the 425, or against this?
Right, so the verbiage wasn't the same.
It's like they're voting on two different things.
Right.
And there was no official motion ever.
Leading.
There was no second, no nothing. But the one official motion they did have, and they did get a second, was when they closed the meeting. So they knew that you had to have a motion, and you knew that you had to have a second.
That's even more damning then, because that shows that you know better.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I mean, do you guys get the feel that the Meijers come in here regardless?
Well, no, they're not regardless. They're a Fortune 500 company, okay?
Right.
They're a big company.
Right.
So can they go to...
A lot of times they do whatever they want, right?
Yeah, can they go to... could they go to Somerset? Yeah. It just depends. You know, market surveys, they do everything by the market.
Sure.
And it's just like anything else. You always have your first best plan, right? When I was in the military, they'd always go, okay, put down 3 duty stations you want.
Right.
So you always picked your number one. Everybody went Hawaii, you know. And then the second one was like
California, or
Georgia.
something. Yeah.
And then the third one was like Alaska.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And so what the Army would always do is they'd always go, okay, he's going to Alaska.
Yeah.
They'd always take your worst pick and send you there first. Well, so you always have a first, a second, and a third pick. Business is no different. So Hillsdale, next to Frank Beck's, might have been first pick.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they don't have a second or a third.
Right.
Okay.
So if we don't answer by December 1st, guess what? We're no longer in the running. That's how it works. That's business.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we obviously we didn't do no big time polls, or we didn't go around knocking doors. But what do you think as the census? What gives you the feel? Do you think the community wants a Meijer?
Well, yes.
I think the community needs a Meijer.
They do need it. There was
I'm not gonna lie, I like the produce.
There was where you sign to say you're for something. Petitions. Thank you. At the BPU. And there was like 450 signatures from all over. There was people from Ohio, Jonesville, Coldwater, Allen, Hillsdale, all over the place. Jackson, that signed that petition. We also did a poll on Facebook on Hillsdale Hot Debate.
For it, right?
For it, yes.
In favor of.
And on Hillsdale Hot Debate, it was 171 to 4 and 15 against. So...
Yeah, it sounds like people want it.
Well,
yes.
But here's the other thing. Here, and even Brett Boyd, he's a smart enough businessman. He understands this, and so it's a little bit disingenuous. His righteous indignation of, it's going to put me out of business. If there was people from Ohio signing that petition, to come, that means that's going to be bringing people in here from other places.
Right.
Now, one thing Hillsdale's never had was a lot of money. So the best thing you can do if you're in an area where you don't have a lot of money is to try to entice people with money from somewhere else to bring that money to you.
Right.
Okay? So people that are coming to Meijers aren't just going to come to Meijers to shop. They're going to come to Meijers and they're going to get some things. They're going to stop at Market House and grab a few things. So what little bit they're going to lose to Meijer from the local people, they're going to pick up from other people transient coming through that are going potentially. But this is how it happens.
He's going to have to strategically he's obviously going to have to strategically.
They're going to buy gas here.
Yeah.
They're going to stop at the convenience stores.
Blimpie, Chester Chicken,
absolutely,
Big B Coffee.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to have to market maybe a different way.
But Meijer's not going to have a Blimpie, right?
Right.
So
they're not going to have a Big B Coffee.
No, they're going to go get their Big B Coffee. They're going to go to Meijer.
Does he own those franchisees?
Yes.
Okay, he owns
those are in his business.
Okay.
So he was smart enough to diversify, which is good. I mean, that's a good business plan. He's a smart businessman. So what he did was smart. But that's why I'm saying his righteous indignation of woe is me is a little bit misplaced. Because it might hurt him a little bit at first, but he is diversified enough it's not. And there's going to be residuals that are going to come from other people coming in.
And we talked about this last night, and obviously you and Penny feel the same, and so did Scott, that he'll be just fine.
Sure.
And I disagreed. I think, I'm sorry, I just think Meijer come here, Market House is gone.
Yeah, it's like my dad said, you have the right to your opinion, even if it is wrong.
Yep. That's why I was just going to, even though he's wrong, he has his right to his opinion.
Okay, so now, do we got anything else on the topic for tonight's news?
No, I think I covered.
Okay.
I think those
now-
are the two big issues.
Yeah, those are the two big things. All right. Well, and this is a show that's about local news. It's about constitutional news that we have in our community. John and I focus a lot into how the Constitution works with your local politics, and we wanted to start with basics. This is our first show, and we wanted to give the listeners and the viewers an idea on where we come from and how the basics work in politics, like ethics, integrity, morals. We also got...
Whoa, you're throwing some big words around there, mister.
Yeah, I know. And Ben Franklin's 13 Virtues. But, John, go ahead. I'm going to let you go ahead and jump on this, John. We'll talk about, like, how ethics work in politics, and then maybe we'll give an example. Maybe I'll give an example of what I've heard in my community. So I'll let you go ahead and jump, and we'll start with... let's just start with ethics, John. What is ethics? Like, how does it pertain? How does it work?
Wow.
The reason why I say this, John, is because I'm an average Joe, right? I'm 39 years old in Hillsdale County. I didn't know what ethics was until I met you. And that was last year. So here I was 38, 39 years old. I understood sort of what ethics were. I got my head wrapped around it. I think the average person could wrap their head what ethics are, but they can't really define it in how it's used in practice.
Well, see, that's the problem. I found that problem in college. I can teach you anything, but if you can't take that knowledge and put it into practical application, then what good is the knowledge, right?
Right.
So this is stuff that we need to be able to put into practical application. My grandfather, he never said much, but when he said something, you better listen because it was golden. And one of the things he taught me about ethics is he said, especially when you're dealing with public money or the public trust, he said you have to keep yourself so far above reproach that no one can even suggest that you did something wrong, and if somebody did, nobody could believe it. That's really ethics right there. If I live my life a certain way, and I have certain behaviors that I do, people see who I am, and they're used to that. They're used to what I will do. And so if I was to do something that was completely out of character for me, most people wouldn't believe it if someone said it, right? And that's kind of the ethical thing there. Are you operating in such a way that no one could even suggest that you did something wrong? Because when it comes to ethics, it's not whether you did or didn't change the outcome. It's whether you had the appearance of the ability to do so. So let's say, for instance, I'm sitting on a city council and somebody wants to sell a hangar back. And I happen to be related to that person, but not so obvious that people don't know.
Yeah, like a brother-in-law.
Yes. Would it be ethical if I vote yay or nay? No.
Obviously.
Obviously. And here's the thing. If I vote yay, then people think that maybe that person didn't deserve to sell that hangar for that price.
Right.
If I vote nay, then people will go, wow, look what he's doing to his brother-in-law. What a horrible person. I'll bet there's problems in that family. So either way, it's a lose-lose situation. Either way. The only win there is in that situation is to be transparent up front and say, that's my brother-in-law. And on that ethical fact alone, I abstain from this vote. That is ethics.
How often do you think... it's comical because how often do you think that happens?
It doesn't. And here's the problem. And it's because, well, Penny, I know I like you. You're a good person. So I know you wouldn't use your family relation to do something improprietary.
Vote emotional.
Yes, you wouldn't do. I know you wouldn't do that because you're a good person, Penny.
That's right.
We're friends.
That's right.
But to be fair, isn't this kind of I guess you could say running into the self-evident truth section, like this is pretty common out there where a lot of people do this, and it's sort of like the norm.
It is, and that's the problem.
Very much, yes.
That is the problem, because when unethical behavior becomes the norm, then what happens is the public trust is lost. Now remember, we are only governed by consent, right? So those that are in those positions...
John, I bet most people don't understand what that even means, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. We'll get into that into another show. But we are governed by consent.
Okay.
That means we, the people, are in charge. We put people in those positions to govern us by consent. We are governed.
Okay.
We're not governed because we are subjects.
Right.
We're governed by consent
and
because
I bet
we are
most
free.
people don't even know that.
No, they don't. That's part of the problem. We don't teach it in school. John Dewey's public school education has done more damage than good. But anyway.
Well, let me give you an example, John, because we talked about this before, and I brought it up to people. Scott Burns, he owns the Deck Down Under restaurant over in Somerset Township, and I love Scott. I personally think Scott is a wonderful guy. You know, we're not necessarily friends; we're acquaintances in the community, and I just think I think the best of the guy. But through his campaign running for township supervisor, he told my best friend that he was to stand to benefit if he became township supervisor from his, because he owns
on his
the
business,
local, on his
business side. Yeah.
Ethically, that would be considered unethical, right? Right? That'd be considered unethical for him to stand to benefit from that.
Exactly.
Is that? Am I seeing that the right way?
Yeah. No. That's exactly the ethical question.
Okay. So, like more recently, I became more spiritual and talked to my pastor. And I told you this before. The pastor said a quote that I thought was kind of cool, that kind of referenced this ethics. He said that we all live a life of sin, and the sin sort of became the everyday norm for generalizing most people.
Sure.
So like everybody that looks at, like, say, adult porn on computer. I mean, it's got to be literally by the millions. So like everybody's living this life of sin, and it's sort of the norm, and it's not a big deal once it becomes the norm. So like when everybody's living unethical for such a long time, it sort of became the norm.
Yeah.
So like it's not a big deal, right? Like, so but it is.
But that's the slow boiling of the frog, right?
Right.
That's really the slow boiling of the frog.
Okay.
And this has been going on. This has been going on for 120 years in this country.
And I hope Scott doesn't get offended. This is just.
No.
I'm not. I'm not.
You're
trying
not calling him out.
No, not at all. Because I think he's a wonderful guy.
But let's make some ground rules here. I'm going to say the same thing I said when I was running for sheriff. There is nobody that's 100% evil, nor is there anybody that's 100% good.
Right.
So there are no people walking around with pitchforks and horns. Okay, it's just not there.
Right.
Now, all of us human beings have all of the capacity for good and evil within us. All of us do, and on any given day, we are a certain percentage good and a certain percentage bad.
Right.
We all are.
Right.
So let's qualify that right now. So just because I speak bad of something that someone has done today doesn't mean that I see them as 100% no good.
Right.
See, this is part of our problem that we've gotten into in our society is I either have to, if I'm on the exchange club with you, then anything you do is all right in my book,
right,
no matter what it is. So I'll self-justify any wrong that you do. Why? Because we're friends.
Right.
No, that's wrong. And it goes the other way, too.
Well, everybody's easily offended in today's world, right?
Yes.
Particularly on social media.
But if I don't like you, I can't even see and say the good things that you've done.
Right.
This is another thing I can't understand.
Yeah, that's probably more.
And I see it in politics all the time. Look, if you do good, I'm going to say you did good.
Right.
Even if I don't like you.
Right.
And if you do bad, and you're my brother, I'm going to tell you did bad.
Like Trump.
That doesn't
mean, if he
mean
has something good, we got to just say that's good. Like when he got that Ball brother home, from China. We got to just say he did a good job.
That was
there,
a good
right?
thing. But the other thing is, I ran as Republican, and people get all upset at me when I condemn Trump when he does things that are unconstitutional.
When he's doing stuff.
Hey,
goofy.
You know what? It's no different. When Obama was in, I did the same thing. If he did something that was good, I called it good. If he did something that was bad, I called it for what it was.
So, John, what's the difference between integrity and ethics?
They are different, but they're very closely tied together. It takes a lot of integrity to have those kind of ethics. Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one's watching. That's integrity.
Okay.
Ethics and integrity go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other.
Sure, and then you got morals, right?
Sure, but let me tell you the wisdom my grandfather said about integrity. He said integrity's like virginity. Once it's gone forever. You don't get it back.
Right.
And the problem is there's been so many people that have jeopardized their integrity.
Yeah.
But they think that they can get it back. You can't.
Right. Yeah, I definitely even myself, as a young adult, I blew my integrity long ago. I got to rebuild that, and then it's tough to do. I mean, people that knew me from the past,
You'll never rebuild it with them.
I can't, right? Yeah, I
So
can only do with new relationships.
We have to know that people can change, and people can.
Yeah, I believe in second chances. Yeah.
And I draw a lot of things from my Christian upbringing, and so I'm just going to throw it out there. God can judge the heart of man. Man can't judge another man's heart, but man can judge the actions of man, and that's where we do get judged. I mean, a good story in the Bible when David did what he did, and he asked for God's forgiveness. It says that God forgave him, but we have to look at it. Did David's people forgive him? No. It took David years to build that integrity back, to build that trust back with his people, because they can only judge the actions of man. And so that's part of the thing. When you ruin your integrity, it's hard you can't build that integrity back with those same people that you destroyed it with. You can change, but it takes years to prove that your actions are mirroring what your heart has changed to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always, because I got a brother that's a drug addict, and I had a checkered past. It took 5 years just for my friends and family, say my best friend's mother, his mom. It took 5 years before she stopped thinking negative of me. Like, I wasn't doing nothing negative for 5 years, but it took that long just to get that credibility back from her. And it probably will never be there 100%, but at least I built a good relationship with her. But
integrity and trust go hand in hand, and I used to tell my kids the same thing. Look, trust is like an oak tree. We plant it as an acorn, and it starts to grow. And it takes a long time for that tree to get big. So if that tree gets up there and it's got a good 2-foot center on it, and you just one day go out there with a chainsaw and cut it down, and then decide that, oops, you shouldn't have done that, you can't just pick that tree up and put it back on the stump.
Yeah.
You have to plant the acorn and start all over again.
So I was trying to tell my brother, because he's, trying to say he's clean and whatnot, and I told him, I said, listen, it's going to take 5 years before anybody thinks you're clean, regardless. So it's a long road for that trust to build back up.
Right. God can know that your heart's changed.
Yeah.
But man can only judge your actions.
So, and then the last basic was morals. So we got ethics, integrity, and morals. And wrapping these up, essentially, this is the basics of how we're going to be judging people moving forward, like whether it be the Jason at the airport hangar, or whether it be our new mayor, or whether it be Penny Swan on the microphone. These are the basics, and a lot of people don't even know what the basics are. So how can we even judge their actions if we don't know what the basics are?
Well, here's the thing. I believe that people do know what the basics are. I believe when it says that all know the difference between good and evil, that is true. We all know what's good. We all know what's bad. Why is it that people feel bad when they do things in secret and that secret is found out? Because they know it's wrong to do things in secret, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, the thief cowers in the shadows, where the righteous man stands upright in the light. And so anytime there's not transparency, then you have to assume that it is evil.
Right.
And these same people, we give them too much when we go, well, maybe they don't know what ethics are. That's a bunch of horse crap. They know the difference between right and wrong.
The average Joe knows right and wrong, but the average Joe does not know how to put ethics into practical form.
Sure they do.
I don't know, man.
No,
I'm telling you.
No, they do. Even my kids knew that, right? When they were being secretive and hiding things.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, say, brother-in-law voting on something that...
No. They know that's wrong. That's why they don't highlight that it's their brother-in-law, right?
No, the average citizen, like, that's seeing it from the other perspective.
Well, the average citizen knows it's wrong, but that's why they don't let them know that it's their brother-in-law that they're voting on, right?
I see what you're saying.
So, yes, they do know what's right or wrong. That's why they keep it secret.
Okay.
Because they do know what's right and wrong.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
So I'm not going to give them a pass on that. No, I'm sorry.
Well, this is our first show. We're going to go ahead and going to close it up here. Obviously, we got a lot more to talk about, even in the basics here. We maybe our next show we talk about some self-evident truth. Maybe talk about the progressive period. We do want to say check out Ben Franklin's 13 Virtues.
Yes.
There's There's like a dozen apps you can get on your phone for that. Just type in 13 Virtues.
I love the 21st century.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite amazing. Anything else you want to say, Penny, while we're here?
Oh, well, maybe report on the city council meeting Monday.
Oh yeah, this Monday,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, that would
so,
be good.
So that's only in a couple days,
Right.
and we encourage people to go out there. And obviously, we can't be everywhere, and we can't know it all either. So we need the support and help from the people in the community. And if anybody out there wants to send anything our way, if they want us to talk about something in particular, to hit us up. Obviously, you can find Penny all over Facebook. You can find Rattan on there pretty easy.
Here's another thing. Anybody that doesn't like what we say and you think it's directed at you, hey, come set it the second mic. Come set it the third mic.
Yeah, reach out to us.
Yeah,
You're welcome to come set.
You can say here and face it head on.
Or anybody that wants to come on the show, we don't have a problem with you coming on the show. And if you got something to say, if someone has a grievance in the community that needs to come on here and say something, we definitely don't have any problems with that.
The only rule is this: you can air your grievances and do whatever you want to do, but at the end, we've got to be civil.
Yeah,
and we have to be
that's right.
civil to one another.
That's right.
This is what it's all about. We have to have open debate, but when it's all said and done, we still have to be brothers and sisters together.
Amen.
And we need to have civility.
So to our listeners and viewers, you guys have a great night. You'll be hearing from us soon.
Thank you.
Good night.